Hello and welcome to D-Hub MT YouTube channel podcast brought to you by the European Digital Innovation Hub and powered by MDIA, Malta Digital and Innovation Authority. Our guest speaker today is Jessica Camilleri, who is the co-founder of Devo and supports business leaders and NGO in cultivating inventive concepts and initiatives by guiding high-performing teams. Her commitment to coaching startup founders remains unwavering, driven by determination to excel and fervent dedication to results. She is also a sought-after speaker and panelist on both local and international stages, focusing on economic innovation, technology, and startups. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you very much for the introduction. That's very generous. And thank you for the invitation as well on the podcast.
You're very welcome. Devo, how did Devo come about? You're one of the co-founders.
Yes.
And obviously also explain to us what you do.
Of course. I think the journey starts a way back. I've always been interested well, technically the term I would say would be curious. So I've always been rather curious and trying to see different sectors. And even when I was still studying and in the initial jobs that you first get after graduating, I tried to dabble in different industries, and that gives you a more of a wide perspective of an entire ecosystem. And eventually I also engaged with NGOs, and I took a bit of a more societal community sense, and I saw the different facets and opportunities that are prevalent. And I was very interested. So immediately I took a liking to startups in particular. They're very young at heart. They are disruptors by nature, and I think the main key term here is disruption, especially if we're talking about the tech sphere. And that kind of sparked the whole interest, I would say, in startups. And today, I also manage an advisory team. So we assist on funding, we assist different startups on setting up locally, we assist on the international sphere. So we attend different events, and we bring startups here in Malta, and we try and coach, and we try and assist them as best we can to get to market, so to get their product MVP to the go-to-market stage. And apart from that, even through the societal element with NGOs, kind of the interest flourished, and we realized that there is this kind of gap where there are so many interesting ideas that are not captured because of the rhetoric, I work 9 to 5, or I don't have time for this. I think this would be a really great idea, but I've never really been able to cultivate it. I don't know what the first step will be. And that is how Devo really was born. So I have an amazing co-founder, and we have very different skills, but together we mesh really well. And we created this ecosystem, which is basically based on the hub, and it's also based on the community. It's kind of a chicken-egg thing, so which comes first? But I think both of them are essential. So the community is really based on visibility and access. So there is a huge opportunity for startups to be visible, to be heard, to be recognized on a register, on the community itself, where we're trying to match different expertise, be it mentors, founders, corporate service providers, be it community partners such as entities and agencies. So we're really trying to bridge that gap between the question, shall I do it? What's the first step? Into, okay, I'm getting there. How can I progress? And then part and parcel to that is the resources element and the Devo Hub itself, which basically features different guides, tools, and templates. Mind you, they are very honest. So for example, if we're dealing with tools, we will write or give guidance on tools that we have tried and tested, and we will be very honest in the main advantages, disadvantages that can give users or startups some more of an honest review on what to expect and what tools to implement and how to implement them.
And
so
that saves them time.
Exactly. Yes,
time.
I still always say you need to really try it to really get the feel of it. But that first step in having someone be that transparent with you and tell you, listen, I've tried this. This is my experience, in a very transparent and honest way. I think it builds that trust that the community needs. So you've got the visibility element, you've got the trust element, and it's really knowledge sharing. So the two go really hand in hand, and it's the ecosystem that we're really trying to create for visibility for startups primarily.
So honesty is the best policy.
Yes. No, because I mean, the landscape is ever changing, and competition is very prevalent as well. So in having this kind of flow of communication. There are people that are really willing to help. There are mentors that have so much experience. And just simply doing a LinkedIn search and trying to find a person might be one way to do it, but you can also have a platform like this where they're readily available. You can put in and start a forum discussion on the website itself, and you can find mentors for specific items or tasks that you might need. So it's a really kind of comprehensive ecosystem that we've tried to create here. We're still new, so we're still building it, but we believe that it is going to fill a much needed gap in the ecosystem as is.
What would you say the journey of a startup is? If you had to sum up the journey of a startup, how would you define it to us?
Chaotic. I think the journey of
Beware.
a start chaotic, but in that kind of overwhelming sense lies, in my opinion, opportunity. So especially if we're going to take the tech industry, if we're going to take a startup in the tech sphere, it is so fast-paced. You need to be so agile. It is ever-changing, and new technologies are coming out. You want to be a first mover, and at the same time, you're trying to build your own product. That it can be overwhelming, and at first, building a good team, finding a very, very good co-founder is not as easy as you'd think, but it is possible, and perseverance and determination remains key. And I think I want to ledge this to a few lessons that I've learned that I think would be of value. Elon Musk. Everyone knows Elon Musk, and I'm using this example because very well-known figure, inspirational, but everyone's pretty much aware of the failures as well. So if you take one of the smartest persons on the planet, and many people will mention the failures and the successes, but what about the lessons? And I will mention two. And this will be, I think, one of the key takeaways that founders need to take through their business cycle. And this is how to navigate through the chaotic sense of getting your startup up and running. So for example, Elon Musk at the beginning, when he first started, he was rejected from many emerging tech companies, right? And that led him to create the first company, and this was Zip2. So basically it was like an online business directory. And it was doing well, he was the CEO, and he was ousted. And obviously, as soon as the company was doing well, he built it with no funds, no investment, just sheer perseverance. And after some time, it did well, he was running it, and they ousted him as CEO. What is the lesson we can learn from that? So there were different failures, yes, but what you can learn is the perseverance and the determination. So something that could better a current system, and that is very, very key. So make sure that you are developing something, a product, a user flow, a particular mechanism that betters and creates value added for the industry. Keep going forward. He then went on to say, okay, I'm going to create PayPal, which in 1999 was dubbed the worst business concept of the year. So honestly, imagine you having a company like PayPal, and that was because initially it was a security software platform and service. So what did Elon Musk do? He kind of augmented it and iterated it in a different way and said, okay, and launched it as an online wallet. And eventually then it was a huge success. What is the lesson from this? The lesson from this is adaptability. Many founders get so obsessed with the product that they have in sight that eventually what happens is that they are blinded by the gap. What gap are you filling? What do your market or target audience needs? And then you fail to take that step back, blinded by the obsession of your product or your baby product that you want to create in your startup, that you fail to recognize the needs that need to be met. And therefore, I think one of the main things and takeaways we take from this is be adaptable, be agile. Don't be afraid of being realistic, taking a step back and say, okay, this was my initial idea, but what if this is what I need to do now? What if I iterate in this way? And especially in the tech industry, that takes courage. There is a risk-reward ratio, but definitely it is rewarding. So having that courage to take a step back and say, is this fulfilling the needs, or is this bettering the current platform that I'm operating in?
What financial metrics should tech founders focus on?
Okay, so this is a question that we're asked quite a lot, and I appreciate that it's very difficult to, especially if you're first starting up, it's very difficult to quantify the revenue that you will have, especially if tech companies have a subscription as a service model. And I think it all links back to what we were talking about before in honesty and transparency. You need to be honest with the amount of revenue and the user base you're going to generate. You need to be You need to take into account your cash burn rate. So with my existing capital, how far can I go? Create timelines, budgeting. Honestly, my co-founder drives me nuts with this, but he is right. And we need to be accountable, and we need to be honest with our numbers. We need to see the average conversion rates that we have. We need to also bear in mind churn rates. So if you have a recurring subscription, by what time do we suspect that that will end? So that you create a financial image that you can rely on, and not a financial image that necessarily you want, but it is something that you can trust, and with it you can plan better. So that is very important. I appreciate again that it is not as easy to do because you wouldn't have the historical information in hand. But you need to be you need to be prudent, you need to be conservative, and you need to trust that your product will fill that gap in the market and that customer retention will pick up.
So if we move on from the financial metrics to the employees, how big should a stock option pool for employees be?
Okay, so it varies. So that varies depending on the company, and it varies depending on the industry. But I think the best answer would be to have a balance. So you would say that probably an average would be 10 to 20%, for example. But you also need to be mindful of the pool of share capital and equity that you have, even if you have future rounds. But the balance needs to be there. So with stock options, what is the premise there? It's to show that people have skin in the game, to encourage productivity, but to also retain your employees. The tech landscape, so the skills that are required for the tech industry, they're relatively scarce at the moment. And as I said, it's ever changing. So you need to be fast, you need to figure out ways how to retain your employees. And stock options are a way to do that because you're giving them a share of the company. So essentially you're saying, okay, you get a wage, but the better we basically provide our service and the better we are with our company, the more you stand to gain because the value of our company will increase and you have a stake in that. So that also incentivizes retention. But again, we need to be mindful of the balance of how much am I going to give? Am I mindful of the future plans I have with regards to equity and investment? But again, retention remains a very, very key element in maintaining your team because they are ultimately in the beginning the kind of drivers for growth for you.
Jessica, what other challenges are there to starting a tech company, even from your experience and obviously what you see today? What do they encounter? What are they faced with?
I think access to funding remains money remains a huge one. Much is being done when it comes to access to finance, and we're kind of finding the way there. But access to funding remains quite a substantial challenge, especially initially when you have tech companies. I think again, talent is one of them. So finding the right talent and finding the right pool and right fit for your company. But as I said, there are various ways in which you can link up with co-founders, you can link up with partners, not only through the Devo Hub and Devo community, but there are also other communities that basically provide that visibility, and you can find connections. You just need to go out there, do the work, and find the people who are willing to collaborate with you. Another thing would be IP, so intellectual property, and navigating kind of the regulatory, I would say, landscape of the tech industry. So intellectual property remains quite a heated debate, I must say, in terms of valuation. So if I want to value my company, what's the best way, especially if you're still starting, you tend to overestimate. How to kind of find that balance and again, be honest with your valuation. So those are the main challenges, but none to say that I mean, there are still ways of navigating that, but slowly but surely they will get there.
As a founder yourself, how would you believe that initiatives like D-Hub MT powered by MDIA would actually help founders like yourself and others to come with their initiatives?
Yes, I was just saying, I was really excited. I was seeing the whole plans that they have, and it's honestly, it's a remarkable project. I mean, again, the access to space and resources remains a huge challenge. So the fact that on site here, there is going to be actual tangible equipment that startups can use that otherwise they cannot have the funds to actually spend and invest in is a huge help. So having a dedicated space with the necessary resources, necessary equipment that you need to develop your product, especially even in the testing phase. So the testing phase is one of the most expensive as well to getting to the testing phase. And you're testing before you're actually committing that intense amount of capital. So you have kind of a safe space. You're mitigating your risk, I would say, to giving tech founders the opportunity to co-network, because it's a space where you're going to find different startups in different fields within the tech space, of course. But at the same time, you've got mentoring as well. You've got partnerships, collaboration. You've got access to the resources. So it definitely will help at least the local sphere in moving forward through the availability of these resources, for sure.
And that answer brings me to marketing. What marketing steps should one undertake when we're talking on a tech startup, or any startup, as a matter of fact?
So I'm not the marketing guru. My co-founder is, and every time it took me a while to really understand the value and grasp the value of marketing, because sometimes you get so delved into the product and you believe so much in what you're providing and the service or product that you're building. And sometimes you still need to market, you still need to communicate. And that's what marketing is, it's communicating. So if you know you are fulfilling a gap, you need to make sure that you are communicating well, how you're addressing a problem. So you need to make sure that you clearly say, okay, this is the gap, this is the problem we're facing right now, but this is our solution. And essentially, through various marketing campaigns, you have SEO, websites, even if it's just a website at the initial stage, it's very important to kind of integrate and be mindful of these different things to get to your target audience. So plan campaigns. It wasn't my favorite thing, I must say, when starting the startup, but it is very important because that is how you get engagement. Engagement leads to collaboration. Collaboration leads to further ideas, and then you go back to the initial idea and you try and iterate to get feedback and you make it better. So through marketing, you are connecting. So not only you're promoting your product to get revenue ultimately, but you're also doing it to better your own product. And in turn, you're getting feedback, you're getting interaction. And I think that is one of the most important things to get when you're actually at a stage when you're at market and you want to better the service or product.
And you have to keep in mind that you might be focusing on your idea, on your product, on your startup, but you're out there with many.
Exactly.
You're not going to be alone. The competition
exactly. The competition is very fierce. So you need to be really on the ball and focus. And as I said, be mindful of the other factors that we've mentioned to clearly kind of set you up on the right track.
As a final thought, what message would you leave our audience with that they can carry forward after today's podcast?
I think the one thing that I would really want to instill in the viewers is be courageous. That's what I would want to say, because it's very easy, especially in the tech landscape, to become overwhelmed with how fast-paced it is and how ever-changing it is. But in that kind of chaos, there is opportunity. And in that fast-paced dynamic, there is opportunity. So use that and leverage that to create your own creations and innovations. And I think I'll leave you with this, with one of my favorite quotes. And this was by Alan Kay. And he said, the best way to predict the future, you mentioned financial metrics, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I think that is spot on. So don't follow the status quo, be disruptive. Yes, you might need to take a risk, but evaluate, take a step back, see if there's a need, and make sure that it is of value added. But first, you need to be courageous enough and you need to be curious enough to want to see around you what's going on and what's happening. Be curious in that element, which will lead to you learning. From you learning, that will get knowledge and insight. And from there lies opportunity, ideas, and then, it ends up with a tangible idea that you can actually act upon and then create a startup and so on. So I think my main message would definitely be to be curious.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jessica. And that note brings us to the end of today's podcast. That was Jessica Camilleri, co-founder of Devo. Thank you for watching.